So now we continue on with bone, chapter 6, part 2, the structure, the microscopic structure of bone tissue. We need to look closer at the bone and how it's made. So bone is known as osseous tissue. You see osteo, you see osseous, you see that OSSEO prefix, think of bone. So remember, tissues are made up of multiple cell types working together. And so primary tissue found bone is osseous tissue, which has an extracellular matrix, which has different cells scattered throughout. But it has an inorganic and an organic part of the bone. Okay, so we have the inorganic matrix, which makes up 65% of the bone's total weight, and that's what makes it sort of hard and strong, as we'll see. And then we have the organic matrix, makes up 35% of the total weight, which that's the collagen fibers and the rest of the extracellular matrix, right? So bone is a unique is a unique organ, and the osseous tissue is very unique because it has to be strong, but it also has to be able to resist twisting and turning and different things like that. Obviously, we know bones can be broken, but in general, we do not want them to be broken. All right, so the inorganic matrix of bone, is predominantly calcium salts. Remember that bone stores 85% of total calcium ions. So your body can store calcium in your bones. When your body needs calcium or needs phosphorus, it can get that from your bones. So we have this calcium phosphorus salt in the bone, hydroxyapatite crystal. And you can do a quick Google search of this, and there's a lot of research being done on this structure because it makes bone one of the hardest substances in the body. It's strong, it's resistant to compression. We know that bone supports our body. It supports it, it protects it, supports, obviously it's protecting our brain right now, it's protecting our spinal cords right now, allows you to be able to stand up, support the weight of the body. So it has to be a very strong material. So the inorganic matrix, as you saw here, the inorganic matrix and the organic matrix are both part of the extracellular matrix of bone, right? And so we have this inorganic matrix that is very strong, the strong material, right? And then we have the organic matrix, known as the osteoid, which has protein fibers, proteoglycans, glycosaminoglycans, glycoproteins, bone-specific proteins. But the common protein fiber that you're going to see is collagen. And you hear of collagen in multiple parts of the body. In the bone, you'll see it cross-linking with one another. It helps bone have tension, resist torsion, tensile strength. All right. And so pulling, stretching, twisting, bone doesn't need to just be strong in compression, but it needs to be strong in twisting, it needs to be strong in pulling as well. Right. So the collagen fibers will align themselves with the hydroxyapatite crystals, and it works together to give bone sort of like this strong structure in multiple directions. The glycosaminoglycans and the proteoglycans create this osmotic gradient, draw water into the bone, into the osteoid, help resist compression, and then you have glycoproteins as well, right? And so here we have a pretty cool diagram that shows us what a normal bone is. If we remove the organic matrix, the collagen, it becomes too brittle. It's still strong, but it's brittle, so it can crack them and break that way. If we remove the inorganic matrix, now it has the collagen, so it's flexible, but it's not able to resist compression. and wouldn't hold us up. So it needs both the inorganic and the organic matrix to be able to uh, do what we would have for it to do. There are different types of bone cells. There are osteoblasts, osteocytes, osteoclasts, osteoblasts, osteocytes, osteoclasts. All right. And right away, I want you to know that bone is a dynamic tissue, as you see here on the slides. All right. So bone doesn't stay the same. Bone can grow. It can we can create more bone, or we can break down bone as needed by the body. Uh, if bone is well, there's a lot of research on this, but we do physical exercises. It can cause our bones to uh, it can cause our bones to strengthen. It, obviously people say drink milk, strengthen your bones, get healthy bones. Your body will. The idea there is if you have more calcium intake, more calcium will be stored in your bones. But then we also have the ability to be able to break down bones as well when the body needs something. As well, if we have too much of something, we can build up the bone. If there's research that's been done, if you are doing more activities, your bones need to be stronger to be able to support the body, and therefore that can increase bone growth. And so for people with osteoporosis, for instance, they'll tell them to exercise in order, especially to do strength training, in order to try to increase their bone mass. Right. So there's these three types of cells we're going to talk about. Right. Osteoblasts. And these are your osteogenic cells. Flattened cells differentiate into osteoblasts when stimulated by specific chemical signals. Right. These are your bone building cells, right? Bone building, form bone deposition, right? Osteoblasts secrete organic matrix materials, assist in the formation of inorganic matrix. So they help to build bone. When you're creating inorganic matrix, you're creating the hydroxyapatite that can store calcium and phosphorus and different things like that, also and strengthen the bone. So these osteoblasts are metabolically active bone cells in the periosteum. Remember, the periosteum is on the surface of the bone. Remember that it's covering the bone, the periosteum, and provides the blood source for the bone. But then we also have the endosteum, which is on the inside, covering the surfaces of some of the inside of places like the spongy bone, right? We also have osteocytes. This is your general bone cell, right? So the osteoblasts eventually surround themselves with matrix, and cavities become osteocytes. They're no longer metabolically active, and so they become quote unquote bone. They're stationary for the most part, or they're not doing much at all at this point. Okay. So we have collagen fibers, we have osteogen cells, we have osteoblasts, but we also have osteoclasts, which we're going to talk about in a second, which are responsible for going in the other direction. So these are responsible for breaking down bone. So like I said, we can use calcium to try to we can use calcium to store calcium and phosphorus in our bone, but then we can also break down bone. So bone resorption. So bone deposition, building bone, is osteoblast. Bone resorption, breaking down bone, osteoclasts. They secrete hydrogen ions and enzymes and break down bone matrix. Right? And this slide talks a little bit more detail about that, how they use those hydrogen ions, dissolve components of inorganic matrix. Enzymes break down organic matrix. The liberated substances from the breakdown of bone include nutrients, minerals, amino acids, sugars, and they can be released into the bloodstream or reused or excreted from the body. And this is shows just how osteoclasts are working, right? Osteoclasts, osteoclasts, breaking down bone. Right. Let's look at the histology of bone. Remember, histology is a study of tissue. Histology, hard outermost compact bone and porous inner spongy bone. Remember, the compact bone is towards the outside to resist compression. The spongy bone is more towards the inside to resist the tension, the turning, torquing tension, right? And they're a little bit different. Compact bone is um, we have the ability to withstand great stress. Right, compact bone cross section resembles a, a forest, tightly packed trees. You have these units called osteons, or haversion systems. You'll see that name as well. Rings of each tree are made up of thin layers of bone called lamellae. Right, this is the general osteon structure. Here, contain 4 to 20 lamellae arranged in layered ring structures. The range is very stress resistant. Collagen fibers of neighboring lamellae run in opposite directions, resist twisting and bending forces from a variety of directions. Right, so we have this osteon structure. We also have this central canal, the endosteum, lined hole in the center of each bone, of each osteon. Sorry, and this is where we have the blood vessels and nerve supply. Remember, bone has ample blood supply. Also have nerve supply. If you break a bone, you feel it. Also have nerve supply. We have osteocytes in the lacunae, small cavities between lamellae filled with extracellular fluid. These lacunae. Neighboring lacunae are connected by a network of small passageways, canals, and matrix called canaliculi. The cytoplasmic extensions of osteocytes extend through networks, neighboring cells, share resources, and communicate with one another. Right. So just going over the basic structure of the bone tissue, the histology, the bone tissue, and how it's organized. Right. You see this structure, this osteon structure that these units make up the bone, give it its strength, show you how it has how its blood supply is distributed throughout the bone. Osteons are not permanent structures. Remember, bone is an active tissue. Osteoclasts break down, osteoblasts rebuild, right? So the deposition by the osteoblast, the resorption by the osteoclast, right, of the bone. This talks a little. This talks a little bit about the interstitial lamellae, fill spaces between the circular osteons, represent remnants of old osteons. You have circumferential lamellae. You also have perforating canals. These are just different structures inside of the bone. And that's what bone looks like. You can see down here in the corner, the microscopic view of bone, the canaliculi, the central canal, the lacunae. And you see like this, it's almost like a circle of trees, like a forest, a small forest of trees, and there's these trees all over here and organized. Bone it looks disorganized, but it's actually very organized. Spongy bone, on the other hand, remember, spongy bone, not weight bearing like compact bone, much less densely packed, but can resist forces in different directions. So compact bone is more so resisting compression. So push on it from this end and that end, it won't compress. Spongy bone on the inside is resisting against forces in different directions, twisting, turning, all those types of forces, right? So we have this, it's a little bit different structure on the spongy bone, provides protective structure for the bone marrow tissue. We have this trabeculae, struts of ribs of bone covered with endosteum. not arranged into osteons, not as arranged as compact bone is. You have this concentric lamellae with osteocytes and lacunae communicate through the canaliculi. So it doesn't look, it's not as organized, not as arranged as the compact bone, different structure than the compact bone, but it has a different purpose. And we know that anatomy and physiology work well together. Different structures have different functions. No central perforating canals, supplying blood to the trabeculi, obtain blood from vessels in the bone marrow. So its blood supply comes from the bone marrow. And that's the histology of bone.